Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo is facing a 2-game suspension. Jimmy G just started 6 games this past season, losing his starting job to the rookie Aiden O'Connell in Week 9 for what could turn out to be his first and only season in Vegas. It did not turn out good.
This might be one of the most bizarre stories I've ever woken up to, and it was so bizarre that I had multiple family members and friends notifying me to make sure I get up to get you guys this content almost immediately, because it's a wild story at that. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, my Super Bowl picks that I made in my content with the Patrick Mahomes free square didn't hit, but the one that I posted onto my story did hit, and you guys let me know how much money you made in my DMs. And now that the NFL season's over, we're officially directing our attention to the NBA. I give away my picks for free at the Flight Mike on Instagram, and right now when you sign up for Prize Picks, use promo code FlightMike to get up to a $100 deposit match when you sign up on Prize Picks. Or you can just use my link in the description down below. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Jimmy Garoppolo has had one of the most unique careers that I think I've ever seen. Starting out 10 years ago when he was drafted out of Eastern Illinois College. That one detail alone had Jimmy Garoppolo get compared to Tony Romo, because Tony Romo was the only other successful quarterback to come out of Eastern Illinois. But the very unique part about being selected round 2 in the 2014 NFL draft by the New England Patriots is the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be the next quarterback for the New England Patriots once Tom Brady retired. Now, bear in mind, this was not a bad time to draft a quarterback if you're the New England Patriots. Tom Brady was 36. Back then, when your starting QB is 36 years old, it's very reasonable to expect to have to move on from him within the next 2 to 3 years. But in Jimmy Garoppolo's case, he ended up backing up Tom Brady for 4 seasons, winning 2 Super Bowl rings by being Tom Brady's backup, before the New England Patriots decided to stick with Tom Brady amid a lot of controversy, by the way. This is something that drove a huge rift between the New England Patriots, and traded Jimmy Garoppolo to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2nd-round pick in the 2018 NFL draft. For the most part, Jimmy Garoppolo had a very solid career for the San Francisco 49ers. The issue with him, however, has always been his durability. He's only played a full season for the San Francisco 49ers once, and he missed a game in 2021, so he almost came close to doing that a second time a few years later. But when Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy, the San Francisco 49ers were without a doubt a contender. I mean, in 2019, they made it to the Super Bowl. And although Jimmy Garoppolo is most famous for overthrowing Emmanuel Sanders deep downfield in the 4th quarter on 3rd and 10 with 1:40 left to go in the game, there was no question about it that he was good enough to get the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl when he was fully healthy. Unfortunately for Jimmy Garoppolo, his ability to stay healthy was so inconsistent to the point where the San Francisco 49ers traded 3 first-round picks to swap a first-round pick with the Miami Dolphins and move up to the number 3 overall spot in the 2021 NFL draft to select Trey Lance. And this is where things got a little weird for San Francisco and Jimmy, because in the 2021 season, Jimmy Garoppolo would be fully healthy except for 1 game, and he would put together his 2nd best season for the 49ers of all time. And then the very next year, he re-signed with the 49ers as a backup. They redid his contract. Trey Lance became the full-time starter for about a game and a half before Jimmy Garoppolo played 10 more games for the 49ers, and then the 49ers thrusted in Brock Purdy. Following the 2022 season, Jimmy Garoppolo was a free agent. The San Francisco 49ers had no interest in bringing him back, and he signed a 3-year, $67.5 million contract with the Las Vegas Raiders because Josh McDaniels, for some reason, really wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to be his quarterback. From then on, things would go from about average to above average to really, really bad for Jimmy. Josh McDaniels once again proved to be a complete phony as a head coach. Jimmy Garoppolo went 3-3 and threw 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in his 6 games played before he got benched in favor of Aiden O'Connell, and of course Josh McDaniels would get fired. But it seems like the Jimmy Garoppolo era is over in Las Vegas, because according to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, which by the way, really interesting, Ian Rappaport actually quote tweets tweets Adam Schefter as he's making his report. The original report is Raiders quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo is being suspended 2 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy, league sources told ESPN. The policy violation is related to him using a prescribed medication without having a valid therapeutic use exemption per sources. So, for those of you guys that don't know what a valid therapeutic use exemption is, the NFL has a policy for players that need specific medications that would otherwise be perceived as PEDs. The best example I could give here, other than Jimmy Garoppolo's case obviously, is say if you happen to be a NFL player that has ADHD or ADD and you need to take prescription ADHD substances like Adderall or Ritalin or Vyvanse or something of that nature, that without a doubt improves your focus. So in those particular instances, you have to get a therapeutic use exemption from the NFL, otherwise you're pretty much perceived as cheating. So in this particular instance, my personal theory as to what went down is if Jimmy Garoppolo got busted for roids, then the thing that he didn't get a therapeutic use exemption for was possibly testosterone to do TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy, which is very common for people as they get into their mid-30s or 40s usually to take testosterone in order to replenish naturally declining testosterone levels. And this was my original theory. The thing is, Jimmy Garoppolo is 32 years old, and testosterone doesn't really start to decline in men until around the age of 40. And once you get to the age of 40, it starts to drop by 1 to 2% each year. And don't get me wrong, there could be a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo was just born with significantly lesser testosterone. But this is just my own theory. There's nothing on the record in regards to Jimmy Garoppolo having any sort of issue with his testosterone. But with that being said, the NFL isn't really bringing the ban hammer down on Jimmy Garoppolo too hard. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Garoppolo is only going to get suspended for 2 games according to Ian Rappaport. And I don't know if he's getting suspended for 2 games because he had an actual prescription and just forgot to report it, or it's the fact that he was absolutely terrible despite taking PEDs this past year. Now, the crazy part about this is it's a double whammy. Adam Schefter comes in and says that the Raiders are expected to release Jimmy Garoppolo before the 5th day of the new league year in mid-March, when he would earn an $11.25 million roster bonus per sources, which this is just an incredible time to announce that Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to get released. And I would say I feel bad for the guy, but the guy literally got paid $23.35 million for 322 snaps this past year, and he has career earnings of $148 million. The man has Super Bowl rings backing up Tom Brady, for crying out loud. So I don't feel too bad for Jimmy, and I think he has a lot of options here. Like, on one hand, you could always go to the UFL and play in the UFL. You could literally become the Tom Brady of the UFL. You could carve out a legacy for yourself in the UFL. The Rock will post you onto his Instagram story and really promote you if that's what you want to do. But aside from that, what you really could do is, in this case, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is in a similar situation as Marcus Mariota was in during the 2022 NFL season when he was the starting QB for the Atlanta Falcons. Jimmy Garoppolo is prime bridge QB material. So let's say if you're a team that might take Caleb Williams with the #1 overall pick, or you might take Drake May with the #2 overall pick, or say you want to take a player that might need some more time to develop, Jimmy Garoppolo is the prime candidate that you want to pursue. He's not necessarily a guy that'll get you to the Super Bowl, but he's definitely a guy that is great for your locker room. His teammates always loved him, except when he was on the Raiders, at least it seemed like. Or let's say you're the Denver Broncos and you're moving on from Russell Wilson and you want to bring in someone for a quarterback competition, Jimmy Garoppolo would make sense in this particular instance. But this is even more significant for the Las Vegas Raiders, because by saying you're cutting Jimmy Garoppolo, essentially what you're saying is we are done with trying to pursue veteran QBs to be our starting QB, which is very significant. This is a team that has been hitched to Derek Carr for the past decade until Josh McDaniels came in and changed the Raiders' perception on that. Ian Rappaport even says that the Raiders have been in the market for a QB for 2024, with a potential move up in the draft and looking into the position in free agency. Moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo was always the plan. Now they can do it without paying his guaranteed money. There are so many fun options if you happen to be interested in a quarterback during the offseason. I mean, Russell Wilson's available. Justin Fields can be traded for, and you could get Justin Fields for an incredible value. You could obviously go after Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams is the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, and you'd have to give up 3 or 4 first-round picks to get him. I wouldn't recommend it. You could potentially trade up for Drake May, but same situation. But there are other very under-the-radar players that you could bring in just for quarterback competition, like Carson Wentz or Josh Dobbs or Ryan Tannehill or Joe Flacco. But if you need a firm starter, then you could also go for Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson. There are so many options for you either in free agency or via trade or in the NFL draft that this was a no-brainer. So let me know in the comment section down below what do you guys think about all this. I personally found it hilarious that he got busted for PEDs, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.